Hello, my name is Jeff Fisher. Today I'd like to talk to you about Data Workspaces. Data Workspaces is a toolkit for reproducible science and data science. It was developed at the Max Planck Institute for Software Systems, which is in Kaiserslautern, Germany, as well as at Benedet LLC, a small consulting company in Silicon Valley, California. The problem we're trying to solve is that it's painful to track, reproduce, and collaborate on scientific and data experiments. Data Workspaces is an open source software toolkit that's free to use, free to copy, free to modify, and it organizes your work across multiple physical and virtual locations. It can capture different kinds of data, including source, intermediate, and result data, and then go backward and forward in time with that data. It also supports decentralized collaboration. This is for anyone doing data science, bioinformatics, chemistry, physics, or any domain where you do experiments involving data and need to track those experiments. Now let us talk about some pain points that we encountered when we were doing our own work, which are why we created Data Workspaces. The first problem was that project data is not centralized. You may start your project on a laptop because it's convenient, but then suddenly you find that you're accessing external data sources. Maybe they're external repositories of data, or you have data that won't fit on the laptop, and you may have collaborators. So suddenly you have a problem where you need to wrangle all this data. Secondly, there are challenges with reproducibility and experimental control. So if you're a climate scientist, then you care very much about showing how exactly you got to your results so you can defend it. But even if you're just doing regular data science, you care. For example, you want to show that the system that you have developed will get the same behavior once you put it in production. Secondly, when you're doing a workflow and doing experiments, you want to vary some small number of variables at a time and keep everything else constant. So this may mean kind of going back to a prior state, changing a variable and rerunning the experiment. So that makes reproducibility very important even for day-to-day experiments. Finally, collaboration is a problem. So just getting your same environment working on another machine for your colleague may be a challenge. And beyond that, there's dealing with what version of the code are you using, conflicts in files, and all kinds of problems like that. So our solution is called Data Workspaces. The key idea is that we take all the data where it lives and we version it together in one place and maintain a metadata about all that data. So that might be just a self-contained, one simple repository where you have all your project data, or it might be pointers to many different sources, local and remote. And so the kinds of data we manage are your data sets that you're starting with, the intermediate data you generate during your project, as well as the final results that you want to keep, the results for each experiment. We also track the code so you know kind of what code was used to generate each of the steps of your workflow. Given this version workspace, we can then take snapshots of the workspace at various points in time, typically after you've completed an experiment. But when you take that snapshot, then we know the state of all the data and code at that point in time, and later on you can go back and restore to that. So that's useful for reproducibility as well as, again, experimental control, where you want to go back in time, then tweak one variable and continue. And you can do that for the entire workspace or for individual resources. Finally, Data Workspaces allows for automatic capture of the data lineage graph. That's the graph of how you got to your results, as well as the results themselves, including the parameters you use and kind of various metrics that you may define to represent this experiment. Now let us look at an example data workspace. This workspace is from a data science project we did on ocean buoys. These ocean buoys are run by scientific institutions all over the world, and they capture information about the environment of the ocean, including the air temperature, the water temperature, the height of the water column, the wind direction, etc. So you can go to websites like the National Buoy Data Center run by the US government and download text files containing historical readings from these buoys. For this project, we will have 4 resources. A resource in Data Workspaces is a collection of files that live in one physical location and have one role. So there's 4 roles in Data Workspaces: source data, code, intermediate data, results. And for this project, we have one resource for each of these roles. The first resource is the source data resource, and that's going to contain the data files exactly as we downloaded them from the website. They're kind of hard to work with though, because there's one per buoy per year and the format's changed over time. Therefore, we're going to run a pre-processing step, which will generate cleaned up and normalized data, and it'll be much easier to work with. And we'll store that data in the intermediate data step, and the code to run the pre-processing is stored in the code resource. Next, we can run the actual analysis, and that'll be done using Jupyter Notebooks, and the results of that analysis will go into the results resource. These results include various metrics, and the key metric being temperature change per decade for each buoy, and there will be also graphs and other visualizations available as PDF files. So anyway, that gives you a kind of an idea of what a workspace might look like. Now let's talk about the workflow you might use when starting a project with data workspaces. So you should probably start maybe on your laptop and create a directory that's going to hold your project, named by however you want to name your project. So data workspaces then provides a number of commands using a command line interface that are shown here in blue, and those let you kind of walk through the process. So we'll start with init, and the init command basically sets up the metadata that it's going to need to track the project. Then you can add resources, and again, resources are collections of files, and we might add empty resources, representing kind of results and the intermediate data. And we might also add resources that are tied to our source data. And so again, they could be local, remote, whatever. So we add those so that the workspace knows about them, and then we can start running experiments. And as we run experiments, then we can view results, and we can go back and run more experiments. At some point, we might be getting results we're interested in, so we can take a snapshot of that results. And this basically, the snapshot is capturing the state of all the resources at that point in time. Then we can go back, run more experiments, take more snapshots. And these results, when they're added to the results resource, they're actually not overwriting the old results, but kind of copied off for each snapshot. Now, let's say we decided, we want to go back and we want to tweak a parameter, then we can restore either the entire workspace or individual resources to go run more experiments or reproduce a prior experiment. At some point, the data scientist may want to collaborate with others. To do this, they use the publish command. And data workspaces is implemented on top of the Git source control system and leverages that for collaboration. So there's a number of code hosting services for Git repositories, including GitHub, GitLab, and Bitbucket. And all these are also available in some form as a locally run service. So you can publish to any of these services, whether it's on the web or in your lab. And then your collaborators can use the clone command to get their own local copies of your workspace. And when you do a clone, it's basically cloning the workspace's metadata and history, as well as any resources that need to live locally on their machine. For remote resources, then it's basically keeping a pointer to where that remote resource is stored. Now they can run experiments just like you did and continue the experimental workflow. When they have something they want to share, they can use the push command to push those results up, and then the collaborators can use the pull command to download those things. And so you can go back and forth with this push and pull. The information captured on your experiments is made available through a number of reports. In this slide, we see two examples. The upper left-hand corner is showing you a snapshot history from the buoy data science project. We see that we have a number of rows, each one per snapshot, and these can be kind of across all the collaborators, so it's a common history of the project. And we have a timestamp, a hash, which is a unique identifier for that particular snapshot. You can create a tag that's easy to remember. You can have a message, and then you see a number of other columns, which are metrics that you define for your particular project. And the idea is that if you see those along with the snapshot, then you can quickly see which experiments were interesting and which need further investigation. In the lower right-hand corner, we see a lineage graph. So this is showing you how you got to the final result. So in this case, we have the dots represent a resource or a file within a resource, and the edges represent the command that was run. So we can see we took the source data and we ran a number of commands, and that generated the intermediate results. And from there, we ran a Jupyter Notebook, and that generated the final result. We've created a number of resources to make it easy to get started with data workspaces. Kind of the first resource that you may want to go to is our website, which is dataworkspaces.ai. So this has pointers to all the other information as well as a number of tutorials and explanations. Secondly, we have source code available on GitHub, so you can go fork it, clone it, change it as however you want. We have reference documentation available, and it's in HTML format and goes into detail on all the commands and all the APIs that Data Workspaces provides. Finally, we packaged up Data Workspaces as a Python package, so you can use the pip Python installer to install it using one command. So thank you for taking the time to listen about Data Workspaces. We'd love to help you get started. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions or need any help. Have a good day.